Hey, welcome to the Bible Reading Plan Day 32. Today, we are in Exodus 7 through 9. We're getting into the plagues. We're not going to finish them today. We're going to get the first 7, but I want to focus in to start at the beginning of chapter 7 because it sets the tone for all of the plagues that we're going to read through over the next couple days, as well as this entire encounter between Moses and Pharaoh, and really between God and Pharaoh. It starts like this. The Lord answered Moses in chapter 7, verse 1. See, I have made you like God to Pharaoh, and Aaron your brother will be a prophet. You must say whatever I command you. Then Aaron your brother must declare it to Pharaoh, so that he will let the Israelites go from his land. But I will harden Pharaoh's heart and multiply my signs and wonders in the land of Egypt. Pharaoh will not listen to you, but I will put my hand into Egypt and bring the military divisions of my people, the Israelites, out of the land of Egypt by great acts of judgment. The Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring out the Israelites from among them. And so Moses and Aaron are going to go and do that. But just that first piece, then they will know that I am the Lord. And this is kind of a response to when Moses first confronts Pharaoh in chapter 5, verse 2, and Pharaoh's response is, who is the Lord that I should obey him by letting Israel go? I don't know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go. The Lord says, oh, they're going to know who I am. And even that goes back to in chapter 3, when the Lord reveals who he is to Moses, that he is the one true eternal God. There are no other gods before him or above him or equal with him. He is unique in all of the universe, in all of existence. He is the foundation and cause of all creation. He exists before, he exists now, and he always will exist. And that's kind of all encapsulated in that I am who I am. And so as we get into the plagues here, like I said, the first 7, there's a few different patterns to notice. First off is how each one comes about. There are several patterns in how the plagues roll out. And whichever way, or even a combination of all of them, you want to take this, or as you're kind of exploring it, whatever patterns that you recognize or find to be valid. The point is, the theme is that God is establishing his control over all things, over all of creation. And at the very end, even as we read yesterday, delivering God's firstborn, his chosen heir, Israel, the nation of Israel, he will redeem them partially through the sacrifice of the firstborn children of Egypt, because they have held God's firstborn captive. So every piece of this has symbolic meaning, has lots of depth to it. Some scholars look at all these plagues and they kind of find parallels in Egyptian gods and their specific supposed realms of power. And so this is somewhat of a theological argument against all of the other gods of Egypt and establishing Yahweh, the one true and living God, as the ultimate God and above and beyond any other spiritual being or deity of any sort. Then there's also these kind of patterns that the first 9 plagues land in triplets, that there are some themes. If you were to lay them out in a grid, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you would find if you go this way, you land in a pattern that follows it. There's themes that run crosswise. And so there's a lot of just meaning and structure to the way this is laid out. So with all of that said, let's look at what the first 7 plagues are. The first plague is in chapter 7. Water turned to blood, ruins the water of the Nile for a week. As keeps happening, the Egyptian sorcerers are able to somewhat replicate many of these plagues. And so this is another thing that keeps happening. They keep doing this. Pharaoh hardens his heart and he turns away and denies Israel their request and denies the Lord. In chapter 8, we get into the second plague. Frogs come leaping out and just swarm everything and just ruin all of it. And it just stinks of dead frogs. And that sounds absolutely gross. The third plague is gnats. The fourth plague is swarms of flies. The fifth plague is death of all of the livestock, except in Israel. And all of these plagues, in Israel's part of the Egyptian land, none of these things are happening. But everywhere in Egypt where they do not worship Yahweh, all these plagues keep happening. The sixth plague is boils, sores festering on everybody. The seventh plague is hail, taking out the crops. And so he's affecting the livestock. He's affecting their personal health. He's affecting their crops. The goal of all of this is that tomorrow we'll read about the next few plagues and how that all shakes out. The goal of all of this, once again, was established right at the beginning of chapter 7, that they would know that I am the Lord. That's why God is doing all of this. He's doing it to judge Egypt, but primarily so that they would know, because Pharaoh rejected the entire concept of Israel being God's people, because he said, who's your God? I don't know him. Well, they will know. And yet in all of this, while God said he would harden Pharaoh's heart, Pharaoh keeps hardening his own heart as well. And so there's some debate about how much God is forcing this on him. But the Bible makes very clear that Pharaoh keeps choosing to reject and deny God. And at the end of chapter 9 here, it says, when Pharaoh saw that the rain, hail, and thunder had ceased, he sinned again and hardened his heart, he and his officials. So Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he did not let the Israelites go, as the Lord had said through Moses. Pharaoh keeps hardening his heart. If you reject the Lord, you will get exactly what you ask for. Nothing to do with the Lord. You will get no blessing from him. You will get no reward from him. You will get no life, redemption, salvation. Pharaoh is in the process of receiving everything he ever wanted from the Lord, which is absolutely nothing. Every time I read through this, I just think these are some pretty intense, pretty miraculous signs. And Pharaoh is going out of his way to deny the meaning behind them all, even if his sorcerers can duplicate it, even if he can make stuff similar to that occur. What he's seeing are these powerful moves of a God who is calling his people out of this slavery, and Pharaoh just will not let them go, even in the face of all of that. And I think that speaks to all of us, that even in the face of so much that God might show us, I pray that I and that you would not miss what God is trying to do, trying to call us to, that we would not ignore the call of God to turn away from the things of this world, from our sin and our desires, that we would turn to him and follow him and him alone. Something to pray about. Would love to hear your thoughts and your takeaways from these passages. Drop them in the comments. Let us know what's standing out to you. How is God speaking to you? In the meantime, be rad for Jesus.